What's up, salespeople? On today's 3-Question Sales podcast, we're talking to Andrew Quinn, one of my biggest mentors, and somebody I could talk to about sales for hours. Today, we just scratched the surface talking about sales culture, and we will do this again with Andrew Quinn. I hope you enjoy this content and hit us up with any suggestions on topics that you'd love to hear, or if you'd love to be a guest, if you're passionate about sales and you'd love to be a guest, hit us up. Mr. Quinn, good to see you.
Good to see you, Mr. DeAmato.
So excited to have you here today. Andrew Quinn, you are known as the person who put the early stage HubSpot training into actionable items and led that charge on the ground. You're still at HubSpot, now mentoring at an executive level, which we want to hear about in a second.
Sure.
And you've really seen firsthand and lived this, the impact a sales culture has on taking a company from its first few million in revenue to over $1 billion. Before we jump into the 3 questions on the 3-Question podcast, I want to get your intro and hear what you're doing now at HubSpot, because you are in a new role.
Sure. I've been at the company now almost 13 years. My initial gig there was sales trainer. So I trained all the initial salespeople at HubSpot. And over the years, I've done a variety of different types of people development. And now I do executive coaching and development for our Director Plus community for all the customer facing roles and marketing roles inside the organization.
I love it. I love it. So culture, and we've known each other now for a few years, and you have absolutely taken a spot in my mentor life, where I look to you as one of my biggest mentors. And I just always feel like, we always joke about this, when you're talking, I feel like I can't write things down fast enough because it's sheer gold that comes out.
I don't know if I'm honored or embarrassed by that.
Probably both. So I'm just so excited because sales culture is so important to me and for all the people out there that are running sales teams, that are a part of a sales team. So your wisdom is so crucial. So let's get going with the 3 questions. And question number 1 is, from a sales culture perspective, what did HubSpot do early that helped you have such explosive growth?
There's a couple of things. The one that stands out to me the most is that I can't take credit for this. This was in place before I got there. And I really would credit Mark Roberge and Dan Tyre in particular for establishing this perspective inside the organization. But it was really a feeling of, how are we going to develop our skills? How are we going to identify the behaviors that we want to repeat? And the way that they did that is we instilled this sense in the sales organization of, we're going to listen to recordings. And we called it, film night, right? And it was kind of like reviewing the game tape. And we did this usually 2 times a week. Sales organization was small at this point. It might have been 16 people, right? Maybe 20 people. We'd get in a conference room and we'd, every week there were 2 reps that were nominated to record calls. And we did this on GoToMeeting, because mind you, this was 13 years ago, right? We didn't have Gong or all these fancy tools at that point. And we'd record the call and we'd all sit in a room and we'd play it, put it up on the screen. And one person would be, one of the peer reps would be tasked with giving positive feedback, and another would be tasked with identifying areas of opportunity on that call. And we'd listen to it and we'd pause it and we'd talk about what's actually unfolding. But we did it in a way that was very supportive of the individual. So even if it was a bad call, no one felt bad listening to it after the fact and talking about what happened. It was all in this spirit of, how do we figure out how we're going to get better? Because everybody was on this mission to really evangelize what we were selling, but creating that sense. I've never seen that before, because I've been in sales organizations for a long time in my career, and I've never seen this sense of, collective desire to get better as a group. So therefore, there was a distinct sense of we were competitive, but we weren't competing with each other. Because that's what happens in a lot of sales teams too, is I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing, because then you might do as well as I am, and I'm not going to win. And we didn't have that. It was like, no, even if you might be on the top of the charts, I'm willing to share what I've got with you because I want you there too. And it was such an essential element.
Do you think the peer-to-peer coaching contributed to that vibe of we're all here to help each other on the same team?
Definitely. And there was also this notion we called team selling, right? It was this sense that we're all trying to make the company succeed. So, if you've got something that you can bring on a call, great. We'll, you two should pair up. And if it works, like we'll do commission splits and all kinds of stuff. And like we had different ways that people felt that it wasn't just, hey, I'm always partnering up with so-and-so because they're not that great at this yet. What's in it for me? Like we really tried to do some things, sometimes there might be, a double comp situation or a split. Like we would do certain things in certain circumstances to make it worthwhile for everyone to want to work together to try and help the company move forward and figure out what our sales motions were going to be.
Yeah. I think it's so amazing that HubSpot did this at such an early stage, right? 16 sales reps, and maybe even before that, was there film night before there were?
Oh
yeah.
That was from the very beginning.
Very beginning.
Sense of like, let's listen to what we're talking about. What's interesting is, Mark was a unique sales leader in that he had really strong sales skills, but he also was an engineer by trade. Like he went to MIT and he's got an engineering background. So he went at sales from an engineering mindset, which is, all right, if we land on a particular value statement that works, we've got 20 reps and they're repeating that 20 times a week. Like that's an enormous amount of times that particular thing is getting said. We better make extra sure that that's right and that it works. Because we're going to grow the sales organization, which means we're going to have 40 people saying that and then 80 people saying that thing. Yeah. How do we make sure that thing is the best thing to possibly say?
Yeah.
But sales is a physical thing, right? Like it's between two people and it's about a conversation that has an economic outcome to it.
Yeah. Saying the right thing the right way and then correlating that to wins and losses is one of the most powerful things that you can do in a sales motion, is identify those things, which is what you were doing early on. So I'd love to go into question number 2 because it's very much a good transition, which is HubSpot did this so early. Why do you think so many companies wait to institute a disciplined sales coaching motion?
I'm going to preface that by saying I unequivocally think that's a mistake, right?
Yes, me too.
And, I'm very biased towards that. It was interesting. I was a sales trainer at Verizon, right? And I got recruited into HubSpot. A former salesperson that I worked with in Verizon had got hired into HubSpot. She's like, I think I got somebody to be good at this. I was stunned that they wanted to do this at roughly 20 salespeople, right? But again, it was that mindset of, we are going to grow this thing. If we're going to grow this thing, we got to make sure that every new person coming in is going to do this the way that we need them to do it. And by just putting a new rep, sitting them next to an existing rep and hoping that they figure out what that other rep is doing and adopt it and apply it, like not good enough. We need to make sure we have a very firm approach. What's interesting about that, right, is I started doing that for the salespeople. And very quickly, the customer success organization was like, our people need to learn the same stuff. And, our support people need to learn the same stuff. And so do the marketers, because they're speaking to that. So I ended up teaching all of them, like the core value props. And then, the sales stuff we did separately. But what ended up happening is everybody in the company who had a customer facing role had exactly the same message. And it was impressive because we'd have customers call us and say, I'm stunned that like when I talk to the salesperson, they give me the same story the CS person gave me, the onboarding person gave me. When I call support, same story. Like, you guys are really like locked down on this whole thing.
Yeah.
And it was a function of, we knew what we wanted people to say. We had figured out what the value points were. And then we coached and trained them very early, which once that engine's running, it's very easy to scale that up.
Yeah.
So I think, the leadership at HubSpot was very forward thinking in that, because a lot of companies will look at that and they're like, it's too much effort. It's too expensive to hire a person who's going to do this, right? We'll just let the reps or the managers train each other, and that will work. And then we'll deal with sales enablement, sales training, once we get bigger. But the fact of the matter is, you're not going to get bigger unless you really nail that stuff down and you get it repeatable early.
Yeah.
It was a huge engine of growth for us, was nailing that early and investing in it.
It's interesting. One of my other top mentors in life, Shane Steffens, president of ET, used to say, because there was a little bit of that mentality sometimes. I ran the sales training team, and the directors wouldn't want their reps off the phone. And Shane would lose his mind. And he would say, you just tell them that when they are saying that we want them on the phone, not to be trained, that's like having a baseball player get into the batting box and try to hit a curveball without knowing how to hit a curveball. And, it's like, and so his support and his belief in that you need to train, he was like, you keep them in training until they're ready to go. They shouldn't even be on the phone until they know how to, hit the curveball. So it's all these different people that believe and know the truth in what the ROI is of training. And I think that's where training struggles, right? Is when somebody's saying, oh, it's too expensive, we'll wait. Like you said, the ROI has never been that clear on how it impacts the bottom line, how training impacts the bottom line.
It's a hard thing to measure. It really is. Like, you need a bunch of like early stage KPIs that you're looking at, right? But the real results are lagging indicators, and it's still a correlation at best.
Yeah.
But the thing is, training this is going to sound cliche, but it is this element of like slowing down to speed up, right? Because if I just want them on the phone and they're saying the wrong things, even if it's just slightly wrong, but wrong enough that it's reducing your win rates, like that is going to take you so much longer, and you're going to burn through so many more people to get to the results you want to get to. If you just slow down a bit and figure out what they need to do, what they need to say, when they need to do it, when they need to say it, and train them on that, and then coach and reinforce on that, like, you go so much faster in the long run.
Absolutely. Slowing down to speed up is something I feel like I say 10 times a week, mainly when talking to salespeople and sales managers about discovery. You have to slow down in discovery, especially in the big enterprise deals, in order to speed up, because you cannot misstep, right? And I know it feels sort of alien for a salesperson to slow down, right? You get a good buying sign, you get somebody's eyes that open up, and then you want to just talk about features and benefits. You don't want to then ask the really great question, which is what you need to do, right? When somebody's eyes open up and they lean in, time to ask a great question. And it's the same thing for training. Another thing I love about trainers is that we also know, because you've been on calls where you've been coaching somebody, I assume.
Sure.
And you have seen where a technique has actually won a deal.
Absolutely.
Live in action, right? Nothing feels better than that. That one deal really pays for sales enablement, pay for a small sales enablement team, right? So imagine that happening on every single call if you had that ability to have that. I have a feeling that ROI is going to become a lot clearer for training in the near future. And I know ConversionCoach is going to solve a lot of that in our platform to bring to light how these behaviors, when executed well, how they actually impact conversion, velocity, churn, retention of customer, all that. So yeah, that's great insight. This third question is, I was like, I gotta ask you, because I know you're so good at finding the problems. What could get in the way of this, right? Thinking ahead, seeing the obstacles. And so I smiled when I typed this up. When does sales coaching not work?
Sales coaching doesn't work when you don't know what actually needs to be coached, right? See, that's part of the issue is like, all right, we don't really know what wins deals. And I got 4 sales managers, and they all have their own way of winning. Some of them win based on charisma. They're just naturally charismatic people. People gravitate to them. They'll buy stuff from them.
Yep.
Like, that's legit, but that's incredibly hard to replicate, right? So if even a third of your sales organization is winning solely based on that, you're going to have a lot of problems. And a charismatic manager coaches to how they win. And if it can't be followed, those people are never going to succeed. Right. And then also, if like somebody got lucky a few times saying something that was a little bit weird, right? Or just off kilter from the value prop, right? And those get thrown over the fence to, let's say, your onboarding organization, your customer success organization, or whomever, depending on what you're selling, that becomes problematic because you just promised a bunch of stuff that can't be delivered.
Yep.
You have no handle over that if you don't know what the actual value prop is, sales motions are, how things are supposed to be done over the sequence of your sales process steps. If you're coaching to all this random stuff, at some point you're going to get to a size and scale. You got zero predictability because all these sales managers are coaching or not coaching, right, to a variety of different things that you can't then point to and go in a QBR, here's why we're winning or losing. You just don't know.
Right. Would you also say that, because I'm a firm believer that coaching also does not work when it is not disciplined?
Absolutely. Agree with that too.
You need a disciplined motion. And I would love your insight as to how often do you think a rep should be coached?
So it depends on where they are in their tenure. It depends on where they are in their, natural ability towards this whole thing. And there's 2 kinds of coaching, right? There's deliberate coaching, where you're setting aside time to deliberately work on a specific skill area, right, to get them better. But then there's also in the moment coaching, right, where maybe I'm on a deal, or we're just listened to we're doing a pipe review or whatever, and something comes up and there's a coaching moment. Right. So I think it's those 2 pieces. And in both of those, I need, as a manager or as the individual who's coaching, I need to have a disciplined approach to doing that, right? How do I identify what needs to be coached, right? Because part of the problem is, let's say we're coaching on closing skills when I'm still terrible at discovery. Like, that is like the sales steps happen in a sequence. The coaching has to follow that sequence, because if you're coaching on things that are later than other skills that aren't strong, like, you're just building on a weak foundation. So if they're not opening calls well and you're coaching on closing skills, like, it's never going to work. You got to coach in the sequence in which the behaviors happen, so they build on each other.
Absolutely. And I love it. I love getting to that answer. It really depends on what the rep needs. And you absolutely need to start at the beginning and move your way through. And if you try to, like you said, teach a closing sequence when their opening is a mess, it's just not going to stick. You have to start from the beginning. I've noticed that over the years. Get the beginning down, get your intro down, just nail that. Then get discovery down and just nail that. You're almost like 80% of the way there. because a good presentation is really just practice. I think the discovery is the hardest part. And then I think closing sequence too.
Sure.
But you get so much accomplished if you just nail your intro and your disco. And it's on repeat, so to speak, and all the pattern recognition is there and the adaptability is there. And when salespeople really feel like they have a high antenna and they are able to adapt quickly in discovery, I think that's the sweet spot that I'm always looking for is, do they know when to transition out of discovery, come back into discovery? That's when you know somebody is really crushing it, is they're making all the right transition choices, right?
There's another thing here too, which is I think people put much more, I would say, weight on coaching than it really needs to have. Like when you sit here and you say, oh, we need to become a coaching organization. Well, we can't get to that. We don't have enough time to get to that because they envision coaching as this heavy, involved thing. And it's not. Like I tend to find actually, like when I do call reviews with reps, right? And we're listening to a call. It's not like I got to sit there and listen to this whole 1 hour call and, dispense advice and guidance across all of it. I find typically in 3 minutes of conversation, every bad habit they have is present, right? The things that are getting in their way just keep repeating themselves over the entire course of the conversation. Right? They're either not listening, right? They're not asking effective questions. If they get an answer, they don't know what to do with the answer. They don't know how to build on the answer, or they're stacking their question. All those common behaviors, like they just keep repeating. So coaching zeroes in on like an example of that, and then let's work on adjusting that behavior. But that could be a 10-minute window of conversation. It's not this ponderous 1 hour a week, every week for all 8 reps. And I'm 8 hours in on coaching. It doesn't have to be that heavy, but people get caught up in that. And that's why they think they can't do it.
That's true. Right. It's such a great point. You are rarely getting past the first 10 minutes of a call because usually everything that's broken is there. Right. If you are getting past the first 10 minutes, it's a good sign. Sure. It means you're just going to be skimming forward for little things, fine tuning knob tweaks. Well, that's great. It's great. Thank you so much for this time, this wisdom. I feel like
very welcome, Jay.
I feel like I need more amplifiers. Like I only have the one Mesa Boogie, and you get like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like
there's quite a few. There's quite a few there.
Is this so
it's the wall of doom.
And it is funny that we're sitting here with all these guitars. Maybe that is a prerequisite for coming on the podcast is you need a wall of guitars and amps.
Could be.
Quinn, you are the man. I really always appreciate everything that you bring to the table as a sales leader. The world needs more of what you bring to the table every day. HubSpot is so lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have you as a friend and mentor. I can't thank you enough for your time and amazing wisdom. It's going to help.
It's a mutual admiration society, Jay. I too am genuinely humbled to spend quality time with you. You're genuinely a thought leader when it comes to this stuff, and your passion is truly admirable for this whole area of business discipline. I genuinely appreciate that.
Thanks, my man. Well, until next time, thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
You bet. See you soon, Jay.
Take care.
Bye.
And there it is, the great and powerful Andrew Quinn. I hope you enjoyed that conversation about sales culture. We want to say to you, if you are a startup founder, if you are an enterprise sales leader, anybody that is looking for more predictable sales and is interested in our sales prediction tool and software platform, if you need help with coaching, if you're a salesperson and you just want to be better at your craft, we want to hear from you. We want to talk to you. We want to pick your brain, and we're here to help. This is what we do every day. We absolutely love talking about sales and solving these big, complex problems. So reach out to us. We are here and we are ready to talk. Have a great day, and thank you for tuning in.